This is At the Extremes.
Beloved, hello. Beloved, welcome back to At the Extremes, the podcast where we discuss the extremes in our society and how we got here. As always, we are your hosts. I'm Greg.
And I'm Sergio.
Oh, yo, what is that? Was that a local dialect?
Yeah, local Spanish dialect.
I love that. Today, Sergio, we're going to talk about the Great American Redoubt. Yeah, we've been climbing the stairs to get to that place. But before we get lost in our minds, Sergio, I want to ask you: do you think you'd be a good cult leader?
No.
Tell me why. I think you would be.
I mean, I think that I could definitely get down with cultism, but I also is that a word?
I don't know. Maybe it is cultism. I like it.
Cultism, but I don't. I have a big guilty complex, and so I think that unless I was truly believing that I was changing the world and saving people's lives, unless it was just a big rift. If it was a big rift, I would feel too bad.
Well,
so I'd be terrible at it.
Cultism is a word, by the way. Sorry.
Hell yeah.
I don't take any issue with that stance. I think I've mentioned this multiple times in private, and I'm ready to announce it to the world, at least the listeners who are listening. I am going to start my own cult. I think that I am that important that I deserve my own cult. And
you do.
We're going to call it The Light. We've talked about this before. In fact, actually, if you're interested, you can send us your social security number along with all of your banking information. I promise you, I will not use it for my own personal use. It is just so that we can open our first building. And
also know that you're legal. Well, you have to have Social Security.
Yeah,
Can't do that.
Yeah, no. What we're doing is essentially we're just firming up our societal safety net to make sure that everyone's got a Social Security number. We want to make sure that you're doing this right and legal. But if you are rich, especially, please email us.
Yes,
really need you to reach out to us. But
we accept Bitcoin and all the other stuff.
I think Donald Trump has a Bitcoin now.
Oh yeah.
Is it? Are you? Have you made your investment to the dear leader?
Not quite yet. I'm waiting to see how the market pans out.
Yeah, something about digital currency seems to be really, really good right now.
It's kind of up and down. It was kind of like Sam Friedman Bank or Bank Friedman.
Bank Friedman, yeah.
With all his Bitcoin too, and how successful that was, and what he did with that.
Did you ever make any investment in Bitcoin at all, or?
I did not, because it took a long time, and I still don't really understand what it is.
Sure, yeah.
And I'm really happy I waited and I didn't, put in money to that, because it seems like it's a hit or miss market.
It's too variable for me. It's not stable enough. I had a couple of buddies who invested. Remember Dogecoin, when that was like a thing that came onto the scene? I think it was pushed highly on social media stuff, and like people were like, "Oh yeah, like, you need to get into Dogecoin," and then it just completely fell apart.
I paid $100, and now I make $100,000 a year.
Right? Yeah, that kind of stuff always worried me.
I mean, I think most of the things that you see on social media should probably worry you.
In fact, yeah, I'm afraid of most things that are on the internet.
They're eating the cats, the dogs.
Guys, so before we get into and explore what I'm going to call white libertarian nationalism, a Second Amendment first crowd that is the wet dream of Cody and his ilk, I think we should take a quick beer break, have a beer.
Ooh.
Since we're back to drinking. Hello.
We're off the wagon.
Hello. I got a bunch of incense that we're going to light. We're going to say a couple of mantras and calm this space down before the folks of the Redoubt fuck up the vibe, because it's about to happen.
It's about to get really white nationally.
Yeah, so you ready for that? We'll take a break. We'll be right back.
Right on.
All right, Sergio, let's go ahead and get right into it. Like most of our episodes, the subject matter is going to be really dense, which means this isn't going to be a thesis of any sort. We're not going to hit every single point. As I've mentioned 1,000 times, please reach out to us on the internet if we missed something that you want us to talk about. So the Great American Redoubt.
So
Cody.
before we
please
get into
do.
that, I hope that you're guaranteeing me that this is going to be like really feel good and awesome, and we're going to feel ourselves and the audience is going to feel really, really great about themselves.
So Sergio, man, how do I put this? You couldn't be further from the truth. And if you were looking to me to provide anything other than a depressing hole to live within with me, you're way wrong, my bud. That's just not how it goes with me.
We'll go through different stretches you can do to get in the fetal position and just cry.
Well, you can do what I've been doing for the last couple of months, which is just cry in the shower uncontrollably. Oh boy. Let me ask you, we talked about the Great American Redoubt in a different context earlier. We were talking about Cascadia. You remember the whole like Washington, Oregon, like those states that made up the region that ended up becoming Cascadia. These are the same regions that make up the American Redoubt. So it's kind of like this nice little Venn diagram of sorts. I've been trying to like conceptualize it in my brain. And in essence, the Redoubt is what the early settlers of the Pacific Northwest, Cody, Greg, Doug, like all these guys have been trying to establish on their own, a philosophically and maybe eventually a physically walled off kingdom in the Pacific Northwest.
That's really only accessible to white homesteaders.
Yeah, for the most part, right? Like there are, there are variants within and throughout, and we're going to talk about a little bit of that later on. But there is definitely a "Make America Great Again" vibe, if you know what I mean, happening there. Like you said, pointing to like the idea that it's mostly just white folks who are doing this kind of thing. The idea of the Redoubt, Sergio, comes from a guy. The brainchild of a guy by the name of Jim Rawls. He's the former Army intel officer. He's an author, a blogger, a survivalist, a lunatic, conspiracy nut. The list goes on and on. Especially like if you think about like homesteading and being like a prepper. Like he's one of those kind of guys. He's like Cody if Cody was serious.
Or not such an idiot.
Yeah. Like, well, no, this guy's a pretty fucking stupid guy too. If Cody was more of a legit like source of like being afraid,
okay.
Like this guy doesn't show himself to anybody. Like he does things remotely. He lives in a grid completely offline. He goes to like local libraries to write his blog, but he wears costumes when he goes out, so people don't know who he is.
I hope he wears the Groucho Marx glasses and mustache when he goes to different areas. Nah, they'll never see me.
Oh, that's great. I love that. Can you imagine him walking around with like a cane, like the cigar hanging out of his mouth? A guy from like 1943 walking around in modern Montana.
I mean, it's the Pacific Northwest, so anything's possible.
That's true, yeah. If he walked through downtown Portland, people would look at him like, yeah, no, this is a normal Sunday. Like, one of my favorite characters from Portland is the bagpiping, like, Darth Vader character. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
So he's like a unicyclist who, like, roams the streets of Portland with a Darth Vader helmet on, playing bagpipes with, like, flames flying out of him.
Only in Portland?
Yeah, he's a Portlander for sure. I've seen it.
Portlandier?
Yep, for sure. So where did we leave off here? Oh yeah, the idea of the Redoubt, according to Rawls, was borrowed from something that the Swiss government actually had ideas around for national defense. It's called the Schweizer Redoubt, a series of fortifications that the government came up with during like land invasions for like Germanic tribes. But during the Nazi invasion, it really ramped up in production. So like they were like trying to like, make sure that there was a fallback point for, the citizens. So Rawls designs this whole idea around basically that. Like when the shit hits the fan, like this is where like white America is going to come to.
This is where they will be safe.
Yeah, they'll be safe here for sure. So he establishes the Redoubt, and I say establishes like in pretty loose speech quotes there. He establishes the Redoubt in 2011 after deciding that city living was providing one too many risks for his liking. He was anticipating an economic collapse especially, And he decides to bug out to an area that he names, obviously, the Redoubt. He picked that area because of its relatively low population density and its lower risk to mega natural disasters. I guess he never saw like Mount St. Helens or like the whole idea of like the West Coast snapping off from the rest of the United States because of the continental shelf.
big one?
Yeah. That doesn't register with this guy. Or what's it? The one geyser that's in Yellowstone. What's it called?
Oh yeah, Old Faithful.
Yeah. With the one that's like a mega underground volcano that's ready to pop at any moment.
Just wipe out the whole Midwest.
Yep. He's never heard of that, apparently. So, he says like this is one of the main reasons. And another one is like just like the outdoor leisure and relatively like friendly politics towards like Second Amendment people, like that whole vibe that we've been talking about this entire time. As a local Redoubt radio show, because they've got their own radio stations, but believe it or not.
Really?
Yeah. We're getting into that. Don't worry. So according to this radio show, the Redoubt is, quote, the emerging safe haven and refuge for God-fearing, liberty-loving patriots. So that's a pretty succinct way of putting it. Any thoughts around any of that, Sergio?
Well, when I hear you say that, I'm also just thinking in my head that it's white, loving, God-fearing, patriots that are in that spectrum.
Yeah, one of the key adjectives that's left out of that or descriptor words is white. Mm-hmm. It isn't. Again, there is always going to be the token in these neighborhoods and in these communities, but they're definitely the outlier, not the main. If that makes any sense.
Yeah. I mean, it does make sense. It is, what it is when it comes to this message being disseminated to America that, oh yeah, we have a token person that is all about it. And
yeah. Where's my black people? What did Trump say? Like, where's my black guy? Where's my black man? Or something like that to that effect. It's like,
I love the blacks.
It's like the Candace Owens of the world who go, well, I'm a black person, so that means that not all black people think this way, and like more of us think this way, and like you've got a partner in this, and you've got an ally in us, and it's like, no, you are just somebody who wants to protect their wealth just as much as the rest of the rich white folks who have the money and see other people and having to give more in taxes as an actual threat versus anyway. So I think I said, that Rawls establishes the Redoubt in 2011. But the idea of the Redoubt goes way back before 2011. The bubbling cauldron of the primordial ooze that the Redoubt crawls out of had been simmering, waiting for another unfortunate soul to carry out its decades-long war with minority groups and the federal government. So some say the movement actually starts with a guy by the name of Richard Butler. Richard Butler was a Midwesterner. So he was raised outside of Denver, where he read magazines and like he was part of like zine culture, where like the things that he was reading were depicting the overthrow of the United States with like race mixed Bolsheviks, which he said he found to be incredibly interesting, which means like in my mind immediately I was like, oh, this is like when cuck porn started. Like he's like really turned on by the idea of like
overthrow us,
choke me while you do it, daddy. So what I mean here is that he found it interesting because he couldn't understand why you would marry someone outside of your race. Quote, there isn't anything wrong with being black. This is my own little subtext here. He was definitely thinking that there was something wrong with being black. Finishing the quote. But there is something wrong when you try to mix black species with the white man. This is a violation of God's law. That is wrong. So, yeah, that's a pretty hard way to start that one, eh?
I would really ask him to quote that in the Bible.
Well, he'd probably talk about like mixing the yolks. Do you know that whole passage?
No, man, I'm Catholic.
Yeah, you never read the Bible. So that basically the idea is like what racists and like these like white nationalist types would say is like, you can't mix the yolk. God said do not mix the yolks. And they interpret that to be people. So, yeah. Yeah, I told you it was going to get rough. This is going to be the roughest one yet. I think. I hope.
I hope.
I hope not.
I hope not. I mean, I don't want it to be rough anymore. I want it to be fun and
No.
lollipops and rainbows.
I don't do that. I only know one speed, and that's aggressive,
Aggressive, depressive.
and yeah, that's basically it. Yep. So you know how they say travel opens the mind, Sergio.
Yeah.
That removes like the otherness of other people. Well, Butler had the mind that was like Fort Knox of hate. Like nothing could penetrate his brain to be like, oh yeah, like these people aren't so bad. They're just like me. They just want food and shelter and like to not be worrying about dying every day. Butler didn't have that in his brain.
What did Butler have?
He had a brain filled with race hate, religious hate, hate of communism, because he was a John Bircher. If you recall.
Oh, the Birch Society.
Yeah, we talked about the Birch Society a little bit in a couple episodes ago. So he was also a Bircher, like most of these guys in the early 60s and 70s are. So Butler, he goes off to India for a little bit to work with the Indian Air Force on behalf of the British government. So he's there to fix planes and their hydraulic systems because he's incredibly smart. Like he's a very, very intelligent guy when it comes to dynamics of
all that stuff.
Yeah, he's really, really smart. So he's in India, and while he's there, Butler ends up getting a valet who takes him around India. And this guy's a Hindu man, and he describes to him the caste system. And Butler's like, oh, this is fascinating. I think that America use a caste system.
Yes!
It sounds like something that we would love to establish here back in the country, back in my home country. And so he's really impressed by this system. What do you know about the caste system in India?
That you don't want to be an untouchable. if you can do anything in your life to avoid reincarnating, you don't want to be an untouchable.
Now, why is that, Sergio?
Because it's the lowest caste.
Yeah. And so admittedly, I don't know everything there is to know about the caste system. I know there are several.
You want to be a Brahmin.
Aren't there like hundreds of like layers to this thing, or am I
like 4 or 5?
Okay, so maybe I'm thinking something different here. Maybe I'm thinking about like reincarnation.
You want to be a 1%er.
Yeah, you definitely want to be a 1%er, regardless if you're in America or India. You want to be a 1%er. So
America, no, you don't. You want to be a person that has, the basic needs that you need, and be able to do the awesome things, but you don't want to go to the extremes.
God, you're working against our marketing here, Sergio.
This is the Extreme. Brought to you by Hyundai.
So the question is, like, why is, and I genuinely actually don't know this. Like, are Hindus the ones who believe in the caste system? Or
because it's all about reincarnation.
Okay. All right.
So if you do good in your previous life, you're going to go up and reincarnate.
Oh, really? Okay. So like if you do really, really good your whole life, the idea is, so I guess is that like a measure of like some kind of social control? Like, oh, if we say like the religion that we preach says, if you do good and you're a good tax-paying citizen and you do good by your other people, when you come back to life in your later life, you'll be one of the rich people. Is that like the idea?
You'll reincarnate into a higher caste.
So what happens when you like reincarnate outside of that caste then?
I don't think that's possible.
So you are always reincarnating. Mm-hmm. Wow, that's interesting.
I'm not an expert.
So you could see like how like abuse would come out of that situation of being like, oh yeah, we're the top class and we continue to be reincarnated as said top class.
Because we're better than you.
Yeah. Okay. No, I genuinely did not know I don't know anything about the caste system, and that's on me, and I've learned a lot.
You're welcome.
Thank you. So yeah, like I said, he wants to bring it back to the United States, and like a Too Fast, Too Furious movie, Butler hits the turbo NOS button on his racism, his xenophobia, his hate-filled worldview in 1961 when he starts attending a church in California called the Anglo-Saxon Christian Congregation in Lancaster, California. Lots of troubling words in that name of that church. Anglo-Saxon Christian Congregation. Congregation, probably the least troubling of all of those words. Lancaster, California, definitely the most troubling of those words. Have you ever been to Lancaster, California?
I've been to Lancaster, Pennsylvania, but never.
It's basically the same thing. It's a shittle. I'm kidding.
No, the Amish are really nice out there.
Yeah, I love the Amish. Did you see the Amish very recently were like carrying signs like Trump, like pro-Trump signs on the back of their buggies.
No way.
It's all over like York Times and shit, bro. Take a look. It's ridiculous. Ooh. It's over the top. Like, it's supposed to be like the most non-political community in the country, and they're just like on fire for Trump for some reason. I don't know how they heard any of his rallies since they're not supposed to have electricity.
Yeah. Interesting. I mean, it would be really cool. Maybe we should try to recruit an Amish person, interview him. Why do you like Trump?
What is that thing you have in my face? Hey, that's not Amish at all. What was that? I don't even know what the accent that was.
It sounded close enough.
Okay, cool. Anyway, back to our story. So the pastor of this church, this Anglo-Saxon Christian congregation in California, the pastor, his name is Wesley Swift. Swift taught that a particular type of British religion called British Israelism, that the people of Europe, Northern Europe specifically, were thinking the Germans, the English, the Scots, Welsh, Scandinavians, definitely not the dirty Irish, the dirty Spanish, the Portuguese, or any of the other dirty Catholic religions. Those people were not white enough. Those folks who came from those Northern European countries were actually the actual Jews, and that the actual Jewish population was a demonic breed of humans that were bred through Eve having sex with the devil. You're rubbing your eyes.
Where does that say that in the Bible? I don't remember that part.
So if you remember, Cain was one of the sons.
Abel's brother?
Yep, and he was the dark one. He was the evil one. Remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of that. It's a wink and a nod.
Okay.
Yeah, no, something very troubling about reading about British Israelism. It really struck me hard, especially since, like, if you think about England's role in establishing the state of Israel later on down the road.
Or just colonialism as a whole.
Yeah, something about, like, that whole region of the world where they were fucking things up. It should be known that the pastor, Wesley, was a former Klan member who had his...
Winning.
Yeah, this guy, he was winning on two fronts. He has his own church, and he's got his own clan. So he also ran an organization called the Christian Defense League, something we're going to refer to as the CDL moving forward. Just they play a part in the story.
Not a commercial driver's license.
They don't believe in driver's licenses. They're real sovereign citizen types, if you know what I mean.
I have to follow your rules.
Rules are fucking stupid. Not that I disagree with that. Anyway, so he ran that organization. It was an anti-Semitic organization that spewed hate and wanted to enact racist policies across Southern California, and then eventually California, and then nationwide. So, like, they had, like, world domination, or at least California domination ambitions there for a bit. I'm going to go on a bunny trail real quick with you here, Sergio. So, Sergio, we talked about this a couple times before. A lot of these guys that we've talked about, they've all got books that they've published, right? And a lot of them have just been self-published assholes. This guy, Wesley, had his own publishing company called A New Kingdom Identity Publishing. I will leave you to, like, imagine what they were publishing. I can imagine that you'll figure that out pretty quickly.
Yeah, I mean, New Kingdom just strikes different
identity
definitions and identity into my head.
You throw identity into anything, and all of a sudden it becomes very, very problematic. The Southern Poverty Law Center called them the largest supplier in existence of materials related to Christian identity. So these guys are a gigantic publishing house that's self-funded. They don't take any state money for obvious reasons because it's a hate group. They start publishing shit that's like just straight race hatred, like dopamine right to the brainstem. Like, it is just like Mein Kampf level stuff. You know what I mean?
What's Mein Kampf for our listeners that don't know what that is?
My struggle.
Oh, what?
My struggle. What's a fucking... real quick side note here. I was watching Have you ever played? Did you ever play Wolfenstein, the video game?
Fuck yeah, it was one of the very first video games I ever played.
Yeah, it was like almost like DOS version, right?
Yeah, well, there was blood on the computer screen. Yeah. Like, oh yeah, I get to kill Nazis.
Yeah, it was so cool. You got to kill Nazis. There was blood, and so. Do you know that they put out like a new series of video games for that whole series?
Hopefully, you're still killing. Not that I encourage killing Nazis.
No, I mean, what happens to Nazis? What should happen to Nazis? DACA. So they have Wolfenstein 2 that just came out. Not what just came out, but it's been out for a little bit now. But I was watching like a whole like scene from the game play out, like the game footage or whatever. Really, really, really cool. Like it takes place in like 1960s America, but like the Germans took over, and it's like an internal like they're
dystopian culture where the regime won.
Yep. It's very like Man in the High Castle kind of like alternative history. But it's a very cool idea, and the graphics are incredible. Like it's like modern graphics, so it's no longer like Wolfenstein from 1992, which is
I kind of like that though.
It's a throwback.
Just the graphics and the animation where it was kind of all blocked. And
yeah. It's like Minecraft before Minecraft was cool. Yeah, these kids don't understand. Anyway, Gen Z, I'm glad you don't listen to our podcast, you assholes.
Yeah, you suck.
So the last thing on the end, Kip. Like I said, these guys were all writers, all of them. Rawls, Wesley, Butler, Cody, Greg, Doug. Like these guys are all nuts. The website's even crazier. And I'm going to open up this web link. But
and I'm seeing your notes right now, and it says geosites. Geosites were those were like the underground websites that you'd go to. If you got into geosite, you're like, whoa, you're getting into it.
Take a look at this. Tell me this doesn't look like a geosite site.
What does it say, Greg?
It's Kingdom Identity. So this is the quote at the very top, the opening. Oh, by the way, this guy left his fucking personal phone number in the description, by the way.
Hell yeah.
Kingdom Identity Ministries and the American Institute of Theology will be administered by Brother Chip Lapkin. Please address all questions and concerns to Brother Chip at his phone number, which we're not going to dox this guy.
We should.
Or you can email him his personal email account that has a Gmail account associated with not the kingdomidentity.com, but his own personal phone number and his fucking personal email account.
Well, what does it say? What's the little crest say underneath it?
Conquer we must, for our cause is just.
Which, if we're talking about...
Look at these graphics, dude. Look at these graphics. It's peak geosites. Tell me this is not a geosites website, bro.
Total geosites. But it's awesome. Also so racist. And
I forgot all about the racism. I've been looking at it for days.
This is racism that we're talking about. But the geosites...
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
I forgot about the racism because I've just become so like numb to like looking at this website for days on end, like listening to all the shit that's on this website.
An Iron Eagle and
oh my God, a cross that's soaked in blood along with the Bible, the venomous snake that's intertwined in DNA strands over here.
It's just basically like one step away from "Don't Tread on Me."
The Templar Knights that are out there.
So our listeners should click on this just for your own being able to see what the graphics are.
Yeah, and at the bottom here it says Church of Jesus Christ Christian, the ministry of Dr. Wesley Swift. So this is very much his website. All right, so we're going to take a real quick break, and we'll be right back. So, Sergio, before we took a break, we were talking about this website and this geosites nonsense that this church has put together. They have an entire like dedication. Like you can listen to their radio shows if you wanted to. There are all kinds of sections like for liberals only, which is not filled with racist cartoon imagery at all. If you look at the guy on the right.
He doesn't look like a Jewish stereotype at all.
Not at all. There's just like this baby.
Oh my God. I didn't even see that. Jesus.
Dude. Dude, talk, please. Talk us through it.
I can't talk it through it because it's these two white, like a married couple. Clearly, the wife is blonde. Their eyes have the little target eyes, and they have.
It's like they've been under like a trance. It's like that,
Yeah.
like that.
They're
thing.
hypnotized.
Yeah.
And the baby is in the worst possible way animated as blackface, and the Jewish character on the right has a huge nose and big lips, looking like he's scheming over the white couple.
And in the quote, he says the Jewish character that they're depicting, "Oi, these are good goyim. They parrot what we teach them on TV and in our movies." So this website's totally cool. These guys really know what they're talking about.
Cool, quote unquote.
Yeah. Let me be very clear. They're fucking monster pieces of shit. They are full-blown racists. And when I said cool, that if you didn't understand that to be tongue-in-cheek, maybe
you're racist.
Maybe you need to be a little bit more woke. I don't know. Like, maybe fucking think with your brain, idiot.
Yes.
Anyway, back to Wesley. So Wesley, he's a minister at a church called the Angelus Church. And you can guess what he taught his flock, obviously. It's going to be very racist bullshit. But you're probably wondering, is this church still around? Oh, go ahead.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's still around. I found a website where you can download all of Wesley's teachings, his pamphlets, because the new Identity Christian website that we were just on, you got to pay for everything, and I'm not paying for racist.
Pay for things?
Yeah, why would anyone do that? A bunch of fucking idiots. I'm not paying for that. I refuse to pay for it. I'm not paying for that. It's too rich for my blood.
Huh.
So you can find anything on the internet, and I did.
But how does that make you feel? Because I guess from my background and growing up, the biggest disgrace when it comes to any kind of religion has been the Westboro Baptist Church. And so seeing that and what they do and just how they spout their hate in American society just baffles me. And so now you're telling me that there is a site that is a church, but you have to pay to get their content.
Yeah. I think that all religions, including our religion, the Light, you can sign up for free at www.gregslight./givemeyourmoney.com.
Yeah.
I see that, and maybe it's because I have been thinking about this kind of thing for such a long time that this kind of, like, the idea of a grift around their hate doesn't surprise me. Mm-hmm. So maybe, like, it didn't even register with me that, oh yeah, of course you'd have to pay for it. Why wouldn't you have to pay for? I think it also, what it shows is that if I'm willing to pay for this kind of content, it means I'm serious to the cause. You know what I mean? Like, I'm dedicated enough to the cause that I'm willing to pay for it. Yeah. I'm showing you my commitment through a financial obligation.
I mean, times are tough right now. That's a big conviction. I think if you are going to spend, a few dollars to demonstrate your hate,
Yep.
that you got to be fully committed to it. And I'm glad that you're not committed to that.
No, I got my hate content for free, like any good American should. So I found it online. You can download all the books, his pamphlets, all of his sermons. It's darker than I thought it would be, and I had a really low bar set in terms of, like, the hate, because, like, you hear that kind of stuff. I grew up in an all-white county. I am, half white, half black. And, you hear all kinds of terrible things when you grow up in a county where no one has to think about the things that they're saying. And I was like, oh, this is going to be, a throwback to that. And I was like, man, like, this isn't anything I haven't heard before. And this was in the 90s in Maryland, not in 1961 California and Oregon. You know what I mean?
Well, and so this gets me back to an earlier discussion that we're having. So we were watching a really, really horrible 80s show, Quantum Leap. And, you know, the guy says, what, I must be an R word.
Yeah.
Which, you know, you can use the context clues to understand what that means.
Or you can look at the show notes.
Or you could look at the show notes and just see it. But then they pan to a picture of somebody with Down syndrome.
Yeah.
And it's really, really fucked up and crazy.
Yeah.
So as you growing up in the 90s, and this is off script, but
Sure,
how many microaggressions did you receive throughout, or I mean, that you're cognitive of when it comes to, you know, being biracial in an all-white county and being in a pretty religious church?
Good question. So I think growing up as a kid, I got a lot of affirmation at home about like who I was as a person. Like my mom and dad were really very positive about like embrace both sides of your family. Like, yeah, you have a black side of the family, you have a white side of the family, and both of those sides of the family are equally as important and equally as good and blah, 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 which was really, really positive. But as you know, like kids are fucking cruel. And I got called Oreo a lot, like black on the outside, white on the inside. Like that was something I heard a lot growing up.
Or what about when you hear the word like, oh man, that's just so ghetto?
Yeah. I mean, like, you know,
because that was thrown around a lot, and I
for sure
definitely have.
I used it.
Culpable of saying,
I used it all the time.
I don't want to look ghetto or you know whatever.
And
I mean that can be tied to you know the Jewish experience, black experience, or whatever. And it's stuff that you know we're really working to change that kind of vocabulary.
Yeah, and I think my wife said something about it on the podcast a couple of weeks ago about like, well, once I understand that the words I'm using are hurtful, then I try to use different words that aren't hurtful. And if those words are hurtful, then I try to use different words. And you know, making adjustments in language is not difficult. You just have to be really lazy to not. You know. So I remember growing up and it being a, you know, oh, mom, dad, you know, they call me this. Well, you know, next time they call you that, say I'm proud and move on. Like, you know, you're not going to fight ignorance with fists kind of thing. And while I love punching a Nazi, I've never punched one, but God, if I had the chance to, I would.
Yeah.
You know, it solves nothing, you know, and so seeing that, hearing that, being like exposed to that early and often, it was an experience that I think that most people who don't look Northern European all over the world experience internally in their own community, externally outside their community, and within their own family units at times, right? Like I feel like that's just something that, you know, colorism is a thing in the community, and you know, the lighter you are, the better you are. You know, versus like dark people, dark skinned black folks. It's just there's so much self-hate.
Yeah.
There's so much, you know, wanting to. God, I mean, code switching was a thing that I did and still participate in. You know. Not that when I went back home, you know, we're doing, you know, stereotypical black things or whatever. You know, we weren't, you know, fucking killing hogs and, you know, taking you know, the chitlins
having
out
a big cookout.
Yeah, like none of that stuff. Like, you know, my family was like any other family, but, you know, there is that like, oh, well, you know, the white families have their own big house to work in. Well, we're not as good as the white family. Like, it was just like a lot of that kind of thinking. Yeah. And you go, but my mom and dad are great, and you know we've got everything we need and all that other stuff. So it was definitely confusing when I was a kid. I didn't know what was right, what was wrong in terms of what was being said.
Absolutely, and I think one of the things that you know, and just kind of taking it to my own story, you know, being. I was born in Mexico, but I'm not Mexican, you know, genetically. My father was Guatemalan, but
same thing.
I got called...
Same thing, right?
Yeah. See?
Thank you very much. Yes, and it all the way.
But I got called dirty Mexican all the time.
No shit, really?
Yes.
Wow.
And so the thing that I experienced, and I don't know if you experienced this, but I was not white enough to hang out with the white kids, and I wasn't Latino enough to hang out with the Latino kids. So I didn't speak Spanish. And
Childish Gambino's got a line like, not cool enough for the black kids, not cool enough for the white kids, not white enough for the white kids, not black enough for the black kids, right? Like, I think that was a line in I think Redbone, but yeah, I mean, like, it's a very real experience, and like a lot of people dismiss that, and it's like, well, no, like you do feel isolated at a certain point, and then when you start to find your own community, you're told, oh, well, you're abandoning this other community, one way or the other, right? Like, so then you feel even more guilt.
Well, that's how we found each other. We're both halfies, just hanging out with each other.
Yeah, there's a bench that we all hang out at every Thursday. We all get together, and the halves of the world, we all get together. It's a bench. It's a really small bench, but there's a lot of like cool shops around. So.
And we just get down and we just wallow in our sorrows.
Ice cream socials, that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
The normal stuff.
But I mean, I guess tying it back and kind of making it into
the episode.
Well, the episode, or just kind of our own personal experience, is just being able to recognize that, when you are exposed to this kind of extremes, and you have people that have this kind of views on the world, you just like what the heck? Yeah,
it's really difficult. It's really, really difficult. I think
not to call you out, but have you ever hated somebody because of the way they look, their skin color, or their gender? No. The answer is no. You never have. I never have. And I have a hard time in my own world even coming up with like, I hate this person because...
Let me say this. I don't think that I have ever said in my brain, I hate this person for what they look like or their gender. I think that I, like most people, have had immediate snap reactions and gone, well, that person must be this. Oh, wait a second. I have to challenge that thought.
Okay.
And I think that's where like that's where the growth is, right? It's not going, oh, well, this is what I was taught as a kid. And
your own personal biases and things like that.
Oh, okay, yeah. Well, this person, I remember I did not fly before 9/11, right?
Really?
Not once. I did not fly, not a single time before 9/11. All of our vacations were very localized, like New York down.
Was that economic reasons, or you guys just weren't into like traveling into?
I think it was a lot of economic stuff for my parents, and but like it was also like we have two boys who are eating food at a rate that we can't keep up with, so let's go to New Jersey for the week, let them eat trash because that's all they want anyway. And
boardwalk fries.
Yep, I could have lived off of that for an entire summer. Yeah, what were we talking about? I don't even remember. Okay, well, we'll go back to the story because I forgot I lost the thread.
Sorry, that was my fault.
No. Of our conversation, I lost the thread. If you think of it, remind me. We'll come back to it.
Sure.
Okay. So, what was I thinking? Oh yeah. So what made me think while I was reading a bunch of this stuff and like the New Kingdom identity and blah 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 blah, is like just how Christianity in particular, and I'm not picking on Christianity, it's the faith that I grew up in, it's the major faith in our country, but like just how much Christianity enables this kind of thinking. I grew up with a strong influence in it, and like, not that like the racist part of this stuff is super familiar, but like there's a lot of like that language that's very familiar for me. So it was like, oh, I remember hearing this when I was a kid, or oh God, like I've heard my grandparents say this at one point in time, and I don't know if they know where like this stuff comes from, they're repeating these like words and these phrases, but I don't know that they necessarily understand where it's coming from. And because podcasting is cheaper than therapy, that's why we're here. This whole thing is about me just processing with everybody. So
this is basically like as a trained therapist, I'm just helping Greg work through his problems and his issues.
Yep. We worked out a deal where Sergio comes up, I give him beer and food and ask him his thoughts on my garden, and then he does a therapy session for free.
What do you think about that, Greg? How does that make you feel?
I feel like I'm taking advantage of you, and that must mean something for me. Anyway, God, what am I talking about here? Okay, so let's get back to Butler, though. Enough about me. Let's talk about Butler. It has to be said, like I was saying earlier, he was an incredibly intelligent person, but only concerning planes and hydraulics. He was also an inventor of something that was like a rapid repair system for tubeless tires, and it enabled him to retire at 55. So, like, he was very, very smart. He was not a dumb guy. He did some tour time in Hawaii rebuilding planes and the systems that powered those planes in Pearl Harbor after World War II. And like I mentioned, he was in India working on behalf of the British government. He actually became an honorary captain in the Indian government. A full-blown Nazi became... I guess some of the British were also Nazis, so never mind. It kind of fits. We're talking small craft here.
Everybody was a little bit of a Nazi back then.
Yeah. Everyone got a touch of the Nazi. It has to be said that Butler was also a silver shirt. So, but he was also a pilot, Butler, and we're talking small craft, Cessnas kind of stuff, not 747s. So he would make trips out of Southern California back and forth between, I think it was right outside of L.A. to eastern Washington State, Spokane. And as he's doing...
Spokompton.
Oh, is that what they call it?
No, that's what I call it.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if that was like a local thing or not.
A local thing?
Local one. So he gets a job at Lockheed. This is before he retires, but like he gets a job at Lockheed Aircraft Company. And so he's making trips back and forth, like to help fix things and get things in working order. And as he's flying over northern Idaho, he's like, oh shit, this is the place. This is where I'm going to set up my racist camp. This is where it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Yes, this is my land. So he decides to fuck off and move to northern Idaho. He buys a farmhouse, starts a branch of an already established, quote, social club called the Christian Posse Comitatus, which is very familiar if you're familiar with sovereign citizenship. That should sound very familiar. It's a huge, like it's still active kind of thing.
Is this the Coeur d'Alene area?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. For sure.
For shizzle.
For sure. A lot of this is in that Coeur d'Alene area. So he establishes a group that was already kind of set up by a guy by William Dudley Pelley. And William is a silver shirt Nazi. So like during World War II, have you ever seen the videos of Manhattan, like, where like the Nazi party like had their gathering where they ended up beating up a Jew who jumped on stage to try to interrupt the proceedings?
No, I've never seen that.
Oh God. All right. Hold on. We're going to have to pull this off because this is important.
It's not. It's going to make you just really depressed.
Yeah. You know what? Let's go ahead. I'll link it and you can watch it in the links if you want. We'll watch it afterwards.
What the fuck is wrong with people?
Yeah, there's so much wrong with this country. So Butler goes ahead and he puts his property together by 1977. And in 1977, he sets up a church called the Church of Jesus Christ Christian. And the political arm of this church was called, wait for it, the Aryan Nations. And you've heard of this hate group before, I am sure.
No, what's that?
Just kidding. Never heard of that one before.
What are Aryans?
So 1981 comes around. The compound, the church, gets bombed. And Butler's like, well, it's got to be the Jews. It can't be anybody else. It's got to be the Jews. Either there's zero evidence, and the case was never solved, but there was zero evidence to point that anyone who was Jewish had anything to do with this.
Well, how many Jewish people are living up in northern Idaho?
Right, with a known hate group.
Yeah.
Why would they do that, right?
Okay.
So this whole situation drives Butler even further to the right. You know what I mean? Like he's even crazier. Like he's even more obsessed with the conspiracy that Jews are running the world, Jews are trying to wipe out white people, blah, 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 blah. So in response to this, Butler puts up a 2-story turret in his front yard. armed to the gills. He lines the property with barbed wire, man's guards all over the place. He's got dogs, German Shepherds specifically, and loads of no trespassing signs.
Jesus.
Fun fact, in 2005, the leader of the Aryan Nations tried to make a pact with Al-Qaeda. This is the group this is the kind of people that we're talking about here. That would have been a really odd alliance, right?
Yes.
Yes and no. Yes and no. Almost.
I mean, it's fundamentalism at its core, but it's also, I don't know how you can make a pact with people that
are brown.
Both sides hate each other.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Well, I think they both have the same end goal. It's just two different sides of the coin, right? Like it's authoritarianism, but just brown authoritarianism or white authoritarianism. Which one do you want?
Well, I mean,
Sharia law or white law?
But I think it also goes down to, right, like isn't one of the big things with fundamentalist Christianity is the bombing of one of the temples when that gets destroyed. Then
the Temple Mount.
Yep. The Armageddon will happen, right?
Yeah, and Christians want that to happen for some reason because
it starts a holy war.
Yeah, because God comes back to the earth and like there's 1,000 years of peace and blah 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 blah, or 2,000 years of peace, whatever it is. So Butler also, he's a Hitler stan. He loved Hitler. He loved him so much that he invited racist skinheads from all over the country to his compound in 1989 to celebrate Hitler's birthday. The most violent birthday party of all time, maybe? I don't know. I can't imagine how does that birthday play out?
Is Hitler's birthday 420? Because I always think that
it is.
Because everybody always,
it is.
For all the potheads that are out there, are always like, oh yeah, 420, and then others are like, no, it's Hitler's birthday.
Yeah. If you're in Idaho, you're only celebrating Hitler's birthday. I don't think you're celebrating. Yeah, but how violent was that birthday party? Like they're all like just getting. Have you ever watched not like a punk like party, like backyard party, like where punks are at?
Yes.
Like I imagine it being that with just like a lot of saluting, a lot of racism.
Yeah.
But even more like grocery carts in the front yard somehow. Maybe
backyard wrestling.
Lots of that. Barbed wire all over the place.
A Rammstein.
Naturally. Even though I think, wasn't Rammstein like anti-fascist band? Aren't they?
I don't know. I thought I heard the opposite, that they were kind of semi throwing out like Nazi stuff during their songs. Yeah.
Well, I guess we're going to have to investigate Rammstein next. Next on.
Du hast mich.
Next on At the Extremes, brought to you by Hyundai. I don't know why that's always my sponsor that I go to. Anyway, let's get back to the story. The Aryan Nations, the group that Butler ends up running from his compound, would be the testing ground for another equally as disgusting group called the Order. It's like watching a bad 80s movie, right? I was watching Escape from New York, like the trailer from it, and I was like, oh yeah, the Outsiders, the Warriors, the Order. It just it kind of fits in with the vibe of the time, you know what I mean? So the Order is one of America's most notorious white supremacy groups to come out of the Redoubt region. Maybe even more so than the group that it sprang from. And the Aryan World Congress that hosted these types of folks. The Order goes by a couple of different names. The most nefarious one, though, was the Silent Brotherhood. The group is probably best known for their killing of a Jewish DJ from Denver. His name was Alan Berg. And his primary sin, Sergio, was that he was Jewish. That was his primary sin. These people really did not like him because he was pretty outspoken about traditional society, and the Order thought he was, quote, anti-whitey, which is just one, you're go back to the drawing board with that name, come up with something a little bit more inventive. You know what I mean?
God, it's just crazy. It's just, I mean,
tell me more.
I just have a really hard time with all of this stuff, with racism, granted, you don't like people that you interact with, that you have negative experiences with, but I have a really hard time just blanketing everybody that you have a negative experience with and just saying because I live really next to a lot of older people.
Sure.
So why am I not an ageist? Because I don't think all old people suck.
Sure. Yeah.
And I just have a hard time believing, or not believing. I know people believe in this, but I struggle with how people can just go down these rabbit holes.
Yeah. I think that's the whole point of the show, right? It's for me, it was the idea of how does Cody go from being a guy who's doing tool reviews to being openly accelerationist, openly misogynist, openly racist, openly sexist. how do people get to this place? And I think that like you're highlighting something that I think a majority of well-adjusted people consider like a normal thing for them of like, yeah, no, that person's an asshole, but not all Asian people are assholes, or not all Native American folks are assholes, or, it's just like you do have to be kind of primed at the pump almost to think that this is a good way of carrying out your life.
Well, I guess the question is this,
nature or nurture?
Yeah, nature, nurture, the chicken or the egg. Like, is it people coming up with this on their own, or is it, you've grown up in a culture, society, or with your parents that hold these kind of views?
Right, and then within that, I was doing some thinking about this the other night actually in the shower. Is nurture just our way of expressing nature? Like, you know what I mean? Like, so like there's like that another component of that of, all right, are we just expressing the natural order of things like through that? Or are we like thinking that we're doing that because like, some, race scientist in 1920 measured a skull and thought, oh, well, the skulls on black people are slightly smaller, historically throughout like sub-Saharan Africa.
Eugenics.
Right. Yeah. It's just there's like you can try to make as many categories out of this shit as you want, but none of it makes any fucking sense.
Well, I think one of the things that actually that it struck up to me was when I drive to come and pod with you. One of my biggest markers, and I try to not use maps and to be a lot more independent.
Sure.
But there's one of your neighbors down the street that has a huge Trump Vance sign. I just know that I'm on the
close.
I'm en route, and so
well, they check your papers at the border too, though. You know what I mean? As soon as you come into the county.
Yeah. And
well, y'all papers.
But I think one of the things that again is really interesting is that when you get out further from cities, I think you're a lot more emboldened to be able to have those big signs out. In my neighborhood where I live, I don't see any Trump. No. JD Vance signs anywhere. Yeah. And this sign, it's not near your house, but it's maybe a mile away. It's close enough, and it's huge.
Yeah. Well, you haven't seen the guy across the street who's got the big Trump flag in his backyard. Yeah, I don't know, man. It's difficult because, there's so many different variables, and I think that's part of like what this whole thing is for me is trying to figure that out. You know what I mean? Back to the story, though. The motivation for the order to kill Alan Berg was also folded into a stranger cake batter. The distilled version is this. They thought by killing Berg, they would start a race war. And a large segment of that white population in America would move to the Redoubt region and fight the government and the mongrel races, killing them all and claiming North America for white people.
And I like that you have mongrel, quote unquote.
Well, that's what they said. That should sound kind of familiar. We've talked about this a little bit. We've flirted with it. We've over the pants handy with it. But we've talked about the Turner Diaries for a little bit. But we're about to go to third base directly.
Well, I also think when reading that, you have this idea of having all these people move out to these areas, but these areas need to be developed. And to be able to be developed, you need government to be involved. And
no, you don't, Sergio. They just do it on their own. People just do things out of the kindness of their heart without any kind of oversight. Everyone knows that. Libertarian societies have always succeeded. Don't you know?
I've yet to see it completely. And I just think within kind of our basic lifestyle, right? We're not extreme people, but just regular sanitation, right?
Yeah.
Getting your trash carried out.
Yeah, for sure.
And you need government services coming out to these areas.
100%. I think the one thing that this type of thinking lends itself to is more and more isolationism. And we're going to get to a particular character who really summarizes that really neatly for us in this experience. But there is, you can't, you do need an overarching organization to help put these things in order. Otherwise, you're left with, the balkanization of your trash pickup and
your other basic services, electricity,
Right.
Sanitation,
Yeah.
all the stuff that you need
Yeah.
within this government that you're trying to overthrow.
Yep. But they haven't thought that through. Yeah.
We have outhouses.
Yeah, we can pee outside. Okay, cool, man. So yeah, I think I mentioned to it just a second ago that we had been, flirting with the Turner Diaries, but now we're going to talk about it. In the first couple episodes, I think we especially winked and nodded at it, but here it's time. So the Turner Diaries, for those of you who aren't aware, listeners, is a bigots how-to holy book, illustrating how to build bombs, outlining how to liberate white people from the government, and how to start a race war. We won't cover in this episode the Oklahoma City bomber, Timothy McVeigh,
And Terry Nichols.
Who carried out the most violent, deadly domestic terrorist act in our country's history. Somehow, though, Haitian immigrants are a bigger threat to whatever Terry was. So Timothy McVeigh, he gets pulled over on his way out from Oklahoma City, not even 90 miles out from Oklahoma City, and on the passenger seat was a copy of the Turner Diaries. So the name, the order, was taken directly from the Turner Diaries. The group used the diaries as a blueprint to start their racial holy war, so they could overtake the government and hang their race traitors. The order robbed bank trucks, banks, etc. They fucking robbed an armored truck in the middle of the day in California, like in the middle of the road, and people who were around it happening were like, "Oh, yeah, it's just like a part of like a Hollywood scene. Like this isn't normal. No one would do this. Like actually do this." Well, they did, and they stole $3.6 million.
Holy moly!
Yeah. They were trying to fund like other right-wing extremist groups. And they're like, all right, well, we're just going to rob armored trucks all over the country. But because racists are idiots, one of the morons, the founder of the order, left a gun behind. And the FBI, for all the problems that I have with them, they did a good job here. They tracked down the owner, his name being Robert Matthews. He lived on Whidbey Island, right outside of Seattle.
Oh,
Have you ever been to Whidbey?
Fuck yeah.
Is it nice?
I've
heard it's amazing.
Yeah, it's super cool. And a lot of people that can't afford to live in Seattle move out to Whidbey Island. They can take the ferries over into Seattle.
Turns out there are a lot of racists there too, Sergio.
There's a lot of racists everywhere. But
That's a good point, yeah. Well, Whidbey Island was the host to a shootout between the FBI and this guy, Robert. Government burned him and his cabin to the ground, kind of like playing into the narrative of these people, right? You had things like Ruby Ridge and Waco happen, and these people are anti-government to begin with, and they saw this as just another offense to what was happening around them.
It would be really interesting. This is probably not the appropriate time to talk about it, but to just go through and talk about where these anti-government sentiments come from and where people, get these ideas from. We should try to find somebody that's totally anti-government and talk about this shit.
So when you say anti-government, do you mean anti-government in that they don't believe that there should be a government, or anti-government in that they think that the government should be changed into something different?
I'm thinking of anti-government to the point where people are wanting the most minimal impact of government, or if it's just like an authoritarian government that is, pushing this white narrative through.
Gotcha. Okay, so so you're talking about actually maybe talking to somebody who's in this kind of thinking
and how they get there.
Right. Yeah, that would be really interesting. I agree with that 100%.
So if you know anybody, send us their names and we will publicly shame them and
send them our way, please. Yeah. So, the government really fucked up, right? And actually, I want to play a piece from a PBS article on the order, part of their Extremism of America series. They're talking to one of the FBI agents.
Well, the government didn't fuck up. The FBI fucked up, right?
People within institutions fucked up.
Yes.
There you go.
And do whatever he wants to do to further the goals of the right-wing
So
movement.
what I was saying is the FBI agent coming up here kind of explains and expresses pretty succinctly what actually happened.
We managed to dissolve the order. However, we didn't make any impact on the ideology. The ideology still existed all across this country.
And I think that's really important because they didn't do anything to stop this. They just, well,
You can't stop it.
No. And I like to think of these groups as like dandelion puffs, like the weed in our yard. When you kick it, the seeds go everywhere. Mm-hmm. The FBI kicked the seed puff that was the order. And it's clear to me that those seeds of hate just spread all throughout the Redoubt region. And we're going to take a break, but when we come back, we're going to talk about one of the most impactful seeds in that entire Redoubt region. And his name was Ted Kaczynski.
Oh,
or as you know him,
what's his nickname?
The Unabomber. And we are back again. All right, so it's our deal. We left off, and we're talking about the order. But now we're going to talk about one of the most, influential or maybe infamous characters from the American Redoubt, and that's the Unabomber, Ted Kaczynski. And I didn't know this, they called him the Unabomber because he was the university airline bomber. I didn't know that.
I didn't know that either.
Lots of things I didn't know about the Unabomber.
He was a PhD, right?
He was a PhD in mathematics. Mm-hmm. Incredibly smart guy. He was the kind of smart guy that he knew that he was smarter than you and he wanted you to know it, kind of thing.
Well, so I think we should give a little context for our Zennial and Millennial viewers who might not have been alive. But the Unabomber was somebody that sent mail bombs throughout the country and created a lot of havoc.
Yeah, he had an era of terror from like 1979 to like 86 or something like that. I think I wrote it down here earlier. Yeah, from 1979 to 1996.
Yeah, 96, because I mean...
That was a long time. Mm-hmm. But Sergio, when someone thinks that they're smarter than everybody and believes that, what do they call that in the DSM-5?
Narcissistic personality disorder.
Yeah, okay, there you go. Yeah, totally checks out, because he was a narcissist. He was a conflicting individual for me. As we're going to find out in a little bit, he wrote a manifesto. And in that manifesto, he outlines a lot of different points. And some of them I go, you know what? Not that I agree with like his end goal, but like there are some things I go...
Or his execution of it.
Or his execution of that goal. But like, yeah, we do spend way too much fucking time relying on technology. So we have unofficially diagnosed him as a narcissist. Maybe even... That actually may have been part of his diagnosis. I don't know. But he accepted an offer letter from Harvard University's mathematics department when he was just 15 years old. So this dude, like I said, incredibly smart. He was a mathematics prodigy. A lot of people, there was a lot of articles that I read that said that. His reign of terror, like I said, he spans from 1979 to 1986. He kills and injures over 20 people. He bombed a lot of mathematics departments, airline offices, because he saw those organizations as pushing modern technology and exacerbating the destruction of the natural world. That's the only part where I'm kind of empathetic to like his cause is like, yeah, we are destroying the world. We need to stop it. But maybe bombing people isn't the way to do it, Ted.
So was his thought like that we need to get back to nature and just need to slow down the technology aspect of life?
Yeah, like his like whole... His bio reads that he's an anarchist. Okay. And anarchists typically aren't racists, but there's like different like levels of anarchism, which I think we should one day talk about. I think anarchism is really interesting as a political and social philosophy.
Yeah.
I've been doing some reading about it recently. Not that I subscribe to the thought, but like, it's just an interesting philosophy. Anyway, so there's an inner conspiracy that goes on the right wing that Kaczynski was a part of the CIA project called MK Ultra. Are you familiar with MK Ultra?
I'm not.
So it was a mind control experiment the CIA was trying to do in partnership with Canada during the Cold War. So basically, they thought that Kaczynski was a part of this project, and that they were using mind control to have him bomb colleges and airline offices and things like that. So like the right-wing conspiracy nuts thought that was an actual thing. So I didn't know this before I started researching for the episode, but Ted struggled with his gender identity. I didn't know this.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So in his 20s, he considered transitioning. He went to a psychologist's office at Michigan, and he tried to approach the psychologist, and before he could talk about it, he left. He was looking for gender affirming care, and he didn't find it because he got embarrassed and he left. He leaves the office. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, like, if you guys that aren't familiar with the Unabomber is this kind of shaggy, really hugely bearded guy with a hood on his head that was kind of the famous outline sketch of him, and Greg will put his picture on the show notes, but
for sure
you would never think of somebody kind of out in the woods like that to have that kind of experience.
Yeah, and like it needs to be said about Ted, we'll talk about it here in a minute actually, but he goes to the doctor's office, and he gets there and he's overwhelmed by a sense of anxiety and like, oh my God, like if I talk about this, then it becomes real, right? And I think I remember reading that he said that he left because of that, and then as a result, that was his moment of the phoenix rising from the ashes, right? And so what the right wing has said is they're using it as gender.
He found Jesus.
Well, they're saying they're using it as like a whole he was mentally ill because he wanted to transition, and that transition, like gender dysmorphia thing, caused him to go off and blow things up.
I don't even know how to respond to that.
It couldn't be like his hatred for modern technology or like the things that he wrote about in his manifesto. It's got to be his gender
and his mental health status.
Right. This is a guy who needed services, the highest order.
Or just being able to process the things that he's going through, right?
Right. He grew up in an abusive household where his dad was a violent man with him. His mom was a drunkard, from what I read. And
growing up in Montana, right? Like Montana.
I think so. They grew up, I think, in Illinois.
Okay.
Or Illinois.
Well, he was found in Montana, right?
Yeah, that's where he was found. Yep. So he starts his life off in Illinois, ends up at Michigan, ends up in Southern California, which is where our story picks up. So he's teaching in Southern California at Berkeley University, and he was not in love with it at all. He really wasn't interested in living amongst the normies, as it can be said now. So he resigns from his post and moves back to his parents' house at the age of 25 in 1969. 2 years later, he moves to Montana, builds a cabin in the middle of fucking nowhere, and seeks to live out his days alone by himself, setting up booby traps all over his property and terrorizing the local community.
Question: have you ever been to Berkeley, California?
I've not. No,
I have, and I'm very unimpressed.
I've heard the same.
It's fine. I've got a cousin that lives there, and
it's fine.
She's awesome. Her family's awesome, but Berkeley is definitely no San Francisco. And
that's what I've heard.
It just seems really, really expensive to live in Berkeley. Yeah. Well, in all of California, really.
Yeah, I mean California in itself, but like also kind of like, I mean, it's just a college town.
Yeah, but it's in a city, but it's not in the city. It's not through San Francisco or Oakland. Yeah. It's kind of a suburb. Yeah. And
if it wasn't in California and it wasn't named Berkeley, no one would give a shit.
No.
Yeah. Who they did give a shit about though was Ted. So he gets arrested in 1996. The FBI had spent over $50 million in total trying to identify and arrest Ted. where when the FBI agents go into Ted's cabin, they find 40,000 pages of handwritten journals and 35,000 word manifesto that Ted had written called Industrial Society and Its Future. In it, Ted outlines modern society's ills and how to fix those problems and slow down the technological world from creeping too much into human society.
Okay.
Now, I read a good part of it, Sergio. Some of it I think I understand.
35,000 words. How many pages is that? A lot of words.
I'm not gonna lie to you. I read like the synopsis and then like the first couple of words. First couple of paragraphs, and I was like, "This is too much.
Yeah,
this is way too much." I also don't want to end up on an FBI watch site. So,
dude, but can you imagine just getting into state? Like, I know you love writing the scripts for stuff at the extremes, but can you imagine just being isolated in the woods and just being alone to your thoughts to write anything that you could come up with in your mind?
This is why people go crazy, right? You need people around you. Like, I used to think like being independent and like being alone was cool, but like you're alone and independent for too long, you start seeing shit on the walls. You go crazy. People need people, as it turns out. Ted really could have used a friend.
No TV and beer make Homer something.
Yeah, exactly. I've seen that episode, by the way.
Go crazy? Don't mind if I do. Ted was crazy. Ted was crazy. Yeah, like I said, I read a good part of it. Some of it I think I can understand what he means. In other ways, I am so confused. So what are the things that you understand?
He advocated for a primitive lifestyle, right? But he also advocated for rugged individualism. And
so why do you like the primitive lifestyle or the rugged individualism?
It's not that I like it. I could just understand what he's actually understand the writing. When I say not understanding the writing, I mean actually understanding what he's writing. Like, I'm not talking about like the philosophies. I'm talking about like, what the fuck is he saying? It's like
being able to follow his train of thought.
Can't follow along at all. Like, it's just like fucking, went to the park. We should end the government. Like, what do we talk? Like, it's all these are disconnected thoughts all over the place.
He's alone in a cabin out in the woods in Montana.
This is what you expect. A guy scribbling on the wall and shit, basically, with flies all over him.
Yeah.
But, my understanding is at the end, like I think I said earlier, like really what he's advocating is an anarchist lifestyle. A barter and trade system, a system where, no one has more than they need and no one takes more than they need and everybody's got the thing that they need. And when you need something, you go, well, I'll do this service for you if you do this service for me, and it's all equal. So, like, fixing a toilet is the same thing as dropping an engine in a car. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like, oh, okay, Ted, you fucking weirdo.
Or sending out mail bombs to people.
Yeah, dropping bombs in everyone's mailbox and terrorizing an entire country for over 20 years while the FBI tries to hunt you down.
It spends $50 million doing it.
Yeah. Anyway. Let's get back to Rawls. Rawls is the main editor. Rawls being the guy that we started this episode with. Sorry. So he's the main editor and content contributor of an online blog called survivalblog.com. It's a website filled with exactly what you imagine it would be. There's a tab for every tab. Inside that tab, there's a tab. It is like the never-ending snake where it just eats itself all the time.
It's like the infinity sign.
Yeah, basically. It is just like the self-eating thing. So there's a section on the site where he talks about his precepts. There are 23 in total, and they all read like something that Wrangler Star would say. I'll read you just a couple of them if it's okay. Modern society is increasingly complex, interdependent, and fragile. With each passing year, technology progresses and chains of interdependency lengthen. In the past 30 years, chains of retail supply have grown longer and longer. The food on your supermarket shelf does not come from local farmers. It often comes from hundreds of miles away. So that's a fair point, right?
I don't disagree with that.
Yeah. Not a bad thing to start with. Let's move to something different.
That's being industrialized and moving on to an industrial complex. Yeah.
Show restraint, though, Sergio. But always have a recourse.
Educate yourself, bro.
Yeah. Educate yourself and use lethal force if you have to. my father often told me, not my father, but so it is. My father often told me, "quote It is better to have a gun and not need it than need a gun and not have it. I urge readers to use less than lethal force when safe and practical. But at times, there is not a satisfactory substitute for a well-aimed lead going downrange at high velocity." Do you start to separate with him on that one?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay.
I'm starting to deviate a little bit.
Yeah. Okay. Here's one that Cody often actually throughout all of his content says: the value of redundancy. A common saying is 2 is 1 and 1 is none. You must be prepared and provide your family in a protracted period of societal disruption. Cody believes in the 2 is 1 and 1 is none philosophy. That is his big deal. What's the last one I have written for us here? Also, you're going to notice as I scroll down, there are all these blue links.
Well, he's got like 30 things written down.
Yeah,
so.
and they've all got links buried within links. It is a fucking nightmare.
A rabbit hole, one might say.
Yeah, I'll give you a precept number 21. Whenever you see a federal courthouse, just imagine that there's a dungeon beneath it. Parenthetically speaking, of course, in reality, the dungeon is a sprawling prison way off in some rural county. The U.S. has the highest incarceration rate in the free world, quote unquote. One contributing factor for the high incarceration rate is our system of taxation. So you can tell where he's at. It's not like people being unfairly persecuted or prosecuted for drug crimes that are non-offense, but he's worried about taxes. Like that's his bread and butter. So a lot of this stuff falls right into Cody's belief system. Speaking of Cody, he makes a video that actually ties into survival blog. So he does this video on based on a book called Strategic Relocation, written by another conspiracy theorist and John Birch Society guy by the name of Joel Skousen, who is a weirdo too. So basically the video is Cody, he's flicking through this book, he's showing you maps, statistics for each individual state, their friendliness towards conservative thinking, religious freedoms, gun rights, blah, 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 blah. So this whole survival blog is basically just a more up-to-date version of this book. And for me, I'm thinking to myself, wouldn't you want this stuff to not be on the internet? Wouldn't you want it to be in book form so people have to go to a library and or do you want it to be on the internet because anyone can access it under any pseudonym that they want?
Yeah.
And use a VPN, bounce their IP address around. I don't know. It's this whole kind of thinking confuses the shit out of me.
Does it though?
From a practical, everyday, day-to-day standpoint, you're creating so many obstacles to get to the thing that you want to do. You know what I mean? Why not just take the path of least resistance? I guess maybe I'm a cuck. I don't know.
I think it's just all about the foreplay and just getting down there and just really trying to, engage all the pleasure senses to be able to get down to where you need to go.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I never really thought about that. Maybe this checks off some weird sadistic thing in their brains.
Well, I mean, I think it's, and this is no data to support this, but you think about people that have this kind of mindset and they kind of get off on this puzzle piece of being able to creep down oh, yeah, I agree with that. Like
a QAnon kind of thing.
Oh, yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Oh, and then they click another. Oh, yeah, that's the stuff.
Oh, I got my dick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you think that it's, people under the right circumstances and right influences, and when you can be anonymous and get into this kind of lifestyle, anything's possible. And I think the thing that has been really crazy for me, just being on this podcast with you and the other Bang Time Variety Hour shows that we've gotten into, is just going down these rabbit holes of just seeing where people feel so emboldened that they can go down and feel that they can be racist and they can openly and have a community of people I support that.
It almost feels like because they're in their own website that they think that the community is walled off. You know what I mean?
Nobody else will be able to get into it.
Right. No one can think that this website exists. Surely no one will find it.
Yeah.
And then you find it and you go, oh, well, yeah, my fucking next door neighbor is a, card carrying fascist. think about it, I guess. I don't know. If I was a betting man, I would say that Cody is on this guy's website all the times, like scrolling for hours, trying to learn or copy material, I guess. But Rawls has something on his website called the list of lists. And I'm pretty sure if you click the wrong link, you do end up on an FBI watch list. Like, it was like, click here to buy M47 like ammo. And like, it was just like, what are we, like, how is this allowed on the internet?
These are the addresses of all the liberal Congress people and judges.
You're not so far off.
Really?
They're like not hit lists, but they were like lists of like people you should write, quote unquote. It's yeah.
Greg and I are looking at each other with really big eyes.
Yeah,
like, what the fuck?
It's Sergio, like these are really like this is like really
Dark
unsettling stuff. Yeah. When I saw it, I was like, oh my God. I was like reminded of that like did you ever play the landmine game on like early Windows like computers? Yes. That's what it felt like when I was looking. I was like, holy shit, like you go the wrong place, everything blows up. Like I'm gonna get a virus on my machine if I click the wrong thing here.
Yeah.
So on the list though, he outlines such things as the rule of 3, right? So it's basically like a pretty like basic survival mantra. So 3 minutes without oxygen, 3 days without water, 3 weeks without food. But along with that, he suggests the 5 Bs: buildings, bullets, beans, bacon, and buckshot. So it's like one of these things is super applicable. The other one, kind of crazy.
It's a random assortment of bees.
Yeah. No one's ever thought to put those bees together before. If anything, he's an innovative kind of guy.
Huh.
So along with those simple survival mantras, he has multiple tabs in the Excel sheet that I was telling you about, the list of lists. And each tab has over 30 rows and columns. Like all of them have data in them. So like it is a lot of data to go through. Everything on the list from his books that he suggests to barter and trade items, things you can get to make your home better for off-grid living. There are pages and pages dedicated to quote unquote retreat owner profiles and gun recommendations. Like it is, we're going to skip over some of the interviews that I wrote out some of them, and it's just drivel. Basically it's like when Cody was asking AI, like what kind of guns you would outfit your homestead with, it's that kind of format. It's just with him replying like, oh, what kind of guns do you have? If you were to have 3.5 acres, what kind of guns would you have on your property to protect that? How many acres, like how many spools of barbed wire would you use to protect your property? It's like that kind of thing.
Jeez.
Yeah.
But how self-important are these people thinking that they need all this hardcore gear to be able to survive?
Again, I think we said it before. Like there was that joke about like, I got a Reaper drone. I don't know if this is fair or not, but like if I'm the American government, like these people don't exist. Like you could be wiped off the map before you even got a shot off.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Survival Blog isn't the only website that's dedicated to the Redoubt. RedoubtNews.com is an aggregator site that pulls together nonsense from Breitbart, Zero Hedge, Gateway Pundit. We're talking the creme de la creme of right-wing bullshit. I said in my little script here, I wrote fascist right-wing adjacent news sources. So like, yeah, it's the same thing. They have video reports, which I was like, well, I'm in. Whatever video report, what are these video reports? There's a guy on there called Wild Bill. And Wild Bill is fucking insane, dude. Let me show you one of the clips. This video has... Go ahead.
Before you get into it, I was going to say, like, you know, the big people that we have currently with the conspiracy theories, we have Alex Jones, and we have... who's the founder of Breitbart? His name's slipping me. Steve
Bannon.
They're so gross. But how the fuck do people follow? Why aren't they paying Andrew Tate to run these sites and give them the script to be able to say it when you have these disgusting human beings that to try to church it up and to make it look nicer or a better presentation?
I think if you were, aesthetically speaking, going to tell me if I'm a fully like dyed in the wool conspiracy theorist and I've got all these flashy like graphics coming up, that doesn't make any sense to me. But what we saw earlier in that like Geosites website that's still active in 2024 that looks like it was designed by a 12-year-old, that for some reason goes, yeah, that makes way more sense.
Yeah.
That feels like authentic for some reason. Like the quick cuts and the brah, brah sound effects, like on the Andrew Tate websites where they're talking about like, this is what manliness looks like. You have to fucking fuck broads all the time, blah, blah, blah. That doesn't like resonate with this, like, I live on a farm in Idaho crowd. You know what I mean? Okay. Yeah, he's talking to like the same things that they believe in, but it's just not the same. It's not the presentation they want. You know what I mean? And you're going to see that actually in Wild Bill. This video has nearly 55,000 views. And at the end of the video, Bill has an insane call to action. Oh, every video, he takes like 6 seconds to realize that the camera's on. So he does this like deep breath and he stares at the camera until he realizes, oh yeah, the camera's on. I probably should talk now.
Blackness fatigue is setting in.
Oh, yeah. The video's
America is
called
exhausted
Fatigue.
from dealing with the never-ending complaints and ingratitude of the black community. Black racism against whites and Asians has reached violent proportions, and with the help and funding of the Democrat Party, militant black racism is getting worse. Well, here's a Wild Bill bullet of truth for America.
Your face is telling me something.
What? What?
Is it the coffee cup that he's got in his hand that's clearly filled with bourbon, or is it the cowboy hat or the flyaway hairstyle? What is it?
I just think his militant black comment is the thing that stood out to me the most.
The idea that he's talking about blackness fatigue.
Yeah, well, I mean that's up there too.
Sergio, if that bothered you, I'm pretty sure the next like 2 minutes isn't going to be a problem at all.
White Americans are the least racist people in the USA, probably the whole world. We have been non-racist for the last 50 years, but today the Democrat Party is using racism as a political weapon. And white America is exhausted from dealing with blackness that has been coming against them day after day for years.
Sergio. I've watched this video 1,000 times because at a certain point I started to laugh because I was like, holy shit, this is mad. But you're like, your open mouth, agape look is exactly how I was the first like 3 times I watched this.
White America is tired of your blackism.
Your blackness. Your blackness fatigue.
What?
White Americans who have never had a racist thought in their lives are tired of being constantly accused.
Because fuck this. Because first of all, slavery.
Yeah.
We'll start off with that.
No,
and
but America has been non-racist for 50 years. 50 years.
50 years.
50 years. Reagan era doesn't count.
Civil rights movement. Oh my God.
Oh, dude, it's nuts, bro. It's nuts. You ready for more?
Yes.
Of racism. They're tired of being told that every problem in the black community is the fault of white people, that the massive failures of black cities and neighborhoods and families is our fault. This week, some fruitcake politician declared that blacks violently attacking Asians is caused by white people. No matter what white people do or say, they are slandered as villains by blacks who are determined to punish white Americans simply for being white.
They are slandered by blacks.
Unappeasable. Now, millions of immigrants came here from England, Poland, Italy, South America, Vietnam, Russia. They came from all around the world, and they were dirt poor when they arrived. But they worked hard and became successful and rich and well-adjusted citizens. So why is it that the African community has remained...
Pause it.
Go for it.
as somebody that doesn't want to ever speak for the black community because it's not my position as a white and Hispanic man, saying that all these other European immigrants that came in adjusted well, and then saying that, all black people, there's some kind of deficiency and they haven't been able to adjust well to American society.
Sure, yeah.
Fuck you. Fuck this guy. Fuck redlining, the whole KKK movement, slavery, all those things.
Wild Bill thinks that you're an asshole and you're an idiot.
Wild Bill can kick rocks and go play on 695.
The one thing that I really like about Wild Bill is nothing.
Fuck Wild Bill.
Turning public places into savage mass fistfights. And it's not the Australians who are walking the streets looking to beat the hell out of some pedestrian simply for having white skin. And it's not the Vietnamese who are burning and looting American cities. And it's not the Russians who are fighting with and sometimes killing our police officers. Now, there are, of course, honorable and respectable men like Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas and Dr. Ben Carson.
So honorable.
CT in the house.
Yeah. Clarence Thomas, there's a special place in hell for when that guy dies.
Yeah, he sucks.
He's the worst. Anyway, he also brings up Ben Carson.
These men are extremely successful and at the pinnacle of their possessions, but for some inexplicable reason, they are hated and ridiculed by the black community as if their success is somehow a betrayal of their race. Men like Carson and Thomas should be held up as role models and emulated, not hated and criticized.
Oh my.
America is suffering from blackness fatigue.
Hell yeah.
And that fatigue is slowly but surely becoming a boiling rage. Even the friendliest dog will bite if you kick him long enough. And that is where white America is today. There's a showdown coming. There is no more that we can give. We're done apologizing for imaginary violations. And we're done surrendering to black racism. There's a showdown coming. And it's going to get ugly. This is Wild Bill for America. Thank you for watching. And America, bless God again.
So, first of all, I don't understand. America, bless God.
Yeah.
What the fuck does that mean? And second of all, when you say white America is tired of black racism, I take a lot of issue with that. That is a
why do you take issue with that,
well,
Sergio?
Because as the guy that's somebody that has not experienced the same kind of barriers and the same kind of what affirmative action and all that shit.
Yeah, affirmative action.
It's not all that shit because it's really important stuff. Redlining, all that stuff, where people haven't had the same kind of opportunities to be able to get after the American dream like white people have had.
Yeah, I remember there was a story that I read about a Miami black suburb, like pre-Vietnam, I think it was. No. Yeah, no, it was. It was right after Eisenhower came back and he made the interstate system. And they took 95 and they stretched it all the way down from Maine up to down to Florida. And in order to make room for 95 in Florida, they decided, well, this black neighborhood, this black successful neighborhood, I can go over here now. And they took it and they put it in a swampland.
Yep.
And so, yeah, there are a lot of those kinds of things that we're not going to get into this episode, but just from a Wild Bill perspective, this guy is being showcased on the Redoubt news website, by the way. This is something that's being pushed on their website. So you can see where people up there would kind of get these ideas.
Well, and then you also think about, too, is just he throws out stats that people of color are disproportionately killing police officers. I think if you looked at overall national statistics, and I have nothing to base it on, that it's probably not as unequal as Wild Bill is stating it. Fuck him.
So we're going to skip the next two clips, but we're going to play one last one of Wild Bill. Just because I can see that you're angry about Wild Bill. What
What about whiteness fatigue?
I don't think that's a philosophical debate that Bill's looking to have. So before we get into this one, this video is called Christian Nationalism, and this one ties directly into what we're talking about in this series.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Bunker. So what is this Christian nationalism that the left are so complaining about? It's simply this: Christian men and women who dare to obey the commandments of God and encourage the USA to get back to being a nation under God. That is Christian nationalism. The left are enraged because Christian nationalism might bring back some moral decency. Decency would put an end to the brutal killing of unwanted children. It would definitely stop the sexual mutilation of children and would protect children from circus freak sexual predators. What kind of people become enraged when children are protected? That's easy. Morally despicable people make up the left-wing politics. They rage that their filthy and corrupt politics should be the only politics allowed in the USA. Well, Christian nationalism has been the backbone of America for over 300 years. The founding fathers who signed the Declaration of Independence fought for freedom and then established the government of the USA firmly upon Christian principles. The Bible was the primary textbook in all American schools for 230 years. And guess who printed those Bibles? The United States Congress. Think about that. If the men who wrote the United States Constitution did those things, how can those things be unconstitutional? We are often called...
So you were asking earlier about what his patch says, and it says Black Robe Regiment. And during some of the Revolutionary War, apparently there were clergymen who would take up arms against the British. And that was what this started off as. But like, I just pulled up a Vice piece about this. It just says, meet the Black Robe Regiment of extremist pastors spreading Christian nationalism. So it is just more of the same. You know what I mean? There's nothing different here. We can, I think you've gotten like the gist of what Wild Bill is about, right? Like we don't have to finish that bullshit.
No.
Redoubt News also posts, and we're going to move on. We're going to move on. Redoubt News, they post readiness levels at the top of their website every day. So like it's a different code, it's a different like readiness level. It's like they think that they're military personnel still, or that they're like LARPing, right? Like a lot of this is just a LARP because their civilian lives are boring as fuck, and they want to pretend like they belong to an organization. And I was talking to an ex-military guy last night. And he was saying, I miss the military because of the structure that it gave me, because it provided me a purpose. And so, like, I'm not sitting here saying I don't empathize with people and say, okay, I get that. Like, that's how, like, people end up in these types of movements because they miss the structure, because they miss having the community of these people. So I empathize with that situation. But simultaneously, it's like, if you hear what Wild Bill's saying and think this is the group I need to belong to, like you already have like some predisposed stuff that you have to deal with, I think.
Without a doubt.
Yeah. So one of the things that the Redoubt News likes to do is I like to hold something called nets. For those of you who aren't baked into government policy and ideas, it's something called a new equipment training. So a net is a new equipment training. So they're training civilians on new equipment. The folks at Radio Redoubt hosted and conducted an event called a TREX, which is a Teotwaki, which is the end of the world as we know it. So that's what Teotwaki means, readiness exercise. Again, these guys are just ex-military people or people who want it to be in the military who are just like throwing around just dumb bullshit all of the time. We're going to script like what the exercise was. I wrote out a whole piece about that, but basically like they have like a pretend invasion of a country called Maoistan. You can understand what that means. And then they like pretend like a bunch of like things are taken offline. How do you respond over the radio? That kind of thing. Oh, sorry. I thought you were going to say something there. So we're going to start our descent. We've been flying at 35,000 feet now for a bit, right? We're going to start making our descent here.
Prepare the cabin for landing.
Yeah, there were some new hate groups popping up throughout the Redoubt, and during the Obama and Trump administrations, those numbers really skyrocketed in the Gem State. The northern Idaho area has always had a root in it, and the American Redoubt is the fruits of that that was sprouted from the rotting trunk that used to be the Aryan nations. A legacy of prejudice, fear of the other, and a staunch mistrust of the government. I think that's where we're going to leave it, though, Sergio. Like we've covered a lot of ground, and if you think back to our first episode where we're talking about the spread westward of Manifest Destiny and all these folks who kind of ended up popping up, and this spirit has never left the Pacific Northwest. I don't know what final thoughts you have around it, but as we're coming to a close on this, I know how this ends, and I know that it doesn't get any prettier before we wrap up. So, before your brain gets fully broiled, tell me what your final thoughts are here.
I think just basic thoughts are just how this continues to poison the waters of American society, and how I guess everything has really been opened up to me since Donald Trump has been elected as president. This kind of openness when it comes to racist ideology. When we talked to the Charlottesville, the white supremacy rally that was going on, and they're
Unite the Right.
Unite the Right.
Yeah.
And Donald Trump not denouncing it.
You will not replace us.
It's the J words will not replace us.
Yeah. I censor myself.
But Jewish people will not replace us. Was in a lot more of a derogatory term. And there was bad people on both sides, or good people on both sides, and there's now good people on the sides that are promoting anti-Semitism and racist thoughts. And it's just really been emboldened. We talk about Project 2025, what's going to happen, what's going to mean for people of color, immigrants that are going to be really, and women that are going to be really, really impacted, and people that are non-Christian believers. And it's just really, really scary stuff to think that there's a majority of the population, not a majority, but a significant amount of people within our population that holds these views. Yeah. And it's terrifying.
I think you put a bow on it, man. I don't know that I can add anything to that. That was, I couldn't agree more with you. I genuinely couldn't. One of the things I was thinking about the other day, other than my cult that I want to run.
But it's not a racist cult.
No, it's not. Actually, what it is, listen, if you enjoy selling, buying, participating in the leggings industry, specifically if you're like an athletic person,
or Lululemon.
Yeah, what we want you to do is check the show notes for the artist credits, of course, and the rest of the show notes. Because next week, we're going to continue our investigation into the current day version of what's happening in the Redoubt. We have 2 episodes left in this series, folks. So we're getting ready to wrap this thing up. So we're going to talk about the current day events that are happening. And then in the next episode after that, we're going to discuss the future of the Redoubt.
Absolutely. And, we're going to give a big shout out to our friend of the pod, Brent, who is newly into...
Big up yourself, fam. Booyah,
yeah, Brent, you're part of At the Extremes now. We're going to have you on and get your... we got horns going off for you. You're going to be joining us, and we're going to have some good conversations.
Yeah, absolutely. So, folks, like I said, thank you for listening, listeners, to another episode of At the Extremes. As always, if you have something you want to hear more about, though, or corrections, because, again, we're not perfect, reach out to us on Twitter. We're not going to check our email. Fuck that. I don't check email anymore. I stopped checking email for work. What makes you think I'm going to check email for you? So check the show notes. Go to vote.gov. Register to vote. Make sure that you're good to go. Have a fucking day of voting plan in place. and make sure to vote in your best interest, folks.
Yeah. Take
Whatever-
the day off.
Please, because this country refuses to give us the day off to vote.
Yep.
But till next time, beloved.
Educate yourself, bro.
And you can act appropriately if you want.
Before Ronald Reagan got Manhattan to blow. Before I was cabinet there back and forth. Bro, we had it all day.